In the year 2147, humanity had long since mastered the art of listening to the stars. Deep space observatories floated silently in orbit around Earth's moon, their massive arrays scanning the cosmos for signs of life, or at least something unusual. Ethan Vale, a quiet and unassuming astrophysicist, spent most of his days alone aboard one such station. He wasn't much for company. The hum of machinery and the endless sea of data were all he needed. But tonight, everything changed. It started with a faint pulse, a rhythmic signal that stood out from the usual static of space. At first, Ethan thought it was interference or some glitch in the system. After all, strange signals weren't uncommon in his line of work. Most turned out to be natural phenomena like pulsars or cosmic radiation. But this one felt different. It carried a deliberate cadence, almost like a heartbeat, and then came the melody. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, weaving through the frequencies like an alien symphony. It wasn't random noise. It was music, composed of tones no human instrument could produce. As Ethan adjusted the array to isolate the source, fragments of language began to emerge. Words he didn't understand, yet somehow they resonated deep within him. His heart raced as he realized what he was hearing. A message, not just any message, but one directed specifically at him. "Ethan Vale," the voice said, clear as day despite its otherworldly timbre. "I have searched across galaxies for you." Ethan froze, his hands hovering over the console. Was this some kind of prank? A malfunction? Or worse, was someone trying to hack into the observatory? He ran diagnostics on the equipment, checking every possible angle for errors. Everything checked out. The signal was real. The transmission continued, speaking in broken phrases interspersed with musical tones. Through careful analysis, Ethan pieced together parts of the message. The speaker identified herself as Caliph Vera, crown princess of the Zorathian Empire. She spoke of destiny, of bonds forged by ancient prophecies, and of her unwavering certainty that Ethan was meant to be her mate. Mate. Ethan scoffed aloud. This had to be some elaborate hoax. Alien princesses didn't just appear out of nowhere demanding marriage. But then, against all logic, coordinates appeared on his screen. They pointed to a location near Earth's moon. Coordinates far too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Ethan stared at the numbers, his mind racing. Could this actually be happening? Was there really an alien ship waiting for him beyond the horizon? As if in answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Ethan rushed to the observation deck and looked out into the void. There, glowing softly against the blackness of space, was a sleek vessel unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, catching the light of distant stars. For a moment, Ethan could only gape in disbelief. Before he could process what he was seeing, the ship emitted a single broadcast, not encrypted, not hidden. Just 3 words, transmitted loud and clear across every frequency Earth used. "I have come for my mate." Ethan sank into his chair, his thoughts spinning wildly. This couldn't be real. Yet, as the alien ship hovered silently above the moon, one thing became painfully obvious. Whatever happened next, his ordinary life was over. The sight of the alien ship hovering near Earth's moon sent shockwaves through humanity. Governments scrambled to respond, military forces went on high alert, and news outlets flooded the airwaves with speculation about an impending invasion. But for Ethan Vale, the chaos unfolding below felt distant compared to the storm raging inside his own mind. Sitting in the dimly lit control room of his orbital observatory, he replayed the transmission over and over again, trying to make sense of it all. "I have come for my mate," the voice had said. Those words echoed in his head like a mantra, refusing to leave him alone. Mate. Him. It was absurd. Ethan wasn't anyone special, just a scientist who preferred the company of telescopes to people. And yet, here he was, apparently at the center of an interstellar drama involving royalty from another world. Before he could process further, the ship moved. With impossible grace, it descended toward the observatory, its iridescent surface reflecting the pale light of the moon. Ethan watched as it landed silently on the barren lunar surface nearby, sending up faint clouds of dust that sparkled under the starlight. His heart pounded as a ramp extended from the vessel, and a figure emerged. She was unlike anything Ethan had ever imagined. Towering nearly 7 feet tall, she exuded both power and elegance. Her armor gleamed with intricate patterns etched in glowing runes, shifting colors like liquid metal. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost translucent, and her eyes, sharp, golden, and piercing, seemed to look straight into his soul. She carried herself with the confidence of a warrior, but also with an air of regality that left no doubt about her status. Caliph Vera stepped forward, her gaze locking onto Ethan, even before he fully stepped out of the observatory. "Ethan Vale," she said, her voice resonating with authority yet softened by warmth. "You are mine." Ethan blinked, struggling to find words. I think there's been some kind of mistake," he stammered, taking a cautious step back. "I'm just a scientist. I don't know anything about being someone's mate." Caliph tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. "There is no mistake," she replied firmly. "Our bond was foretold long before either of us drew breath. You are destined to stand beside me, to protect Zorathia and ensure its future." Her words only deepened Ethan's confusion. "Look, this is insane," he protested. "I don't even know where your planet is, let alone why you'd think I'm supposed to be part of it. Maybe you've got the wrong guy." Caliph's expression softened, though her resolve didn't waver. "You may doubt now, but time will prove me right. Come with me, Ethan. See Zorathia for yourself. Only then will you understand why our fates are intertwined." As they spoke, Earth's response grew louder. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, their engines roaring as they approached the alien craft. Communication channels crackled with urgent demands for identification and intent. Caliph ignored them completely, focusing solely on Ethan. When the first warning shots were fired, she raised a hand, and a shimmering energy shield enveloped the area, deflecting the projectiles harmlessly. "This is not a battle I wish to fight," Caliph declared, addressing the humans through a broadcast. "My purpose here is singular, to retrieve what is mine. Harm us, and you risk starting a war you cannot win." Ethan stared at her, torn between disbelief and awe. He knew staying would mean facing endless questions and possibly imprisonment, but going with her meant stepping into the unknown. Still, something in her unwavering certainty tugged at him. Against every rational instinct, he made his decision. "All right," he said finally, his voice steadier than he expected. "Take me to Zorathia. Let's see if this prophecy thing holds up." Caliph smiled, a rare, genuine expression that lit up her face. "You will not regret this, Ethan Vale." With that, she gestured for him to follow, leading him aboard the ship. As the doors closed behind them, Ethan couldn't help but glance one last time at Earth. Whatever awaited him beyond the stars, one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. As the alien ship ascended into the void of space, Ethan Vale found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The hum of the vessel's engines was unlike anything he'd ever heard, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. Around him, the interior of the ship glowed softly with shifting hues of blue and silver, creating an atmosphere both mesmerizing and unsettling. Caliph stood nearby, her golden eyes watching him intently, as if gauging his reaction. "You are uneasy," she said finally, breaking the silence. Her tone wasn't accusatory, but rather tinged with curiosity, as though she genuinely wanted to understand him. Ethan hesitated before answering. "Wouldn't you be?" he asked, gesturing toward their surroundings. "I mean, yesterday I was just some guy staring at stars in a lab. Now I'm on an alien spaceship being told I'm what? Your mate. That's not exactly normal." Caliph tilted her head slightly, considering his words. "Normal is relative," she replied. "To my people, This bond between us is sacred, a union foretold by prophecy. It is not something to fear but to embrace." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I get that it's important to you. But I don't even know where we're going or why you think I'm so special. What if this prophecy is wrong? What if I mess things up?" Caliph stepped closer, her presence commanding yet oddly comforting. "The prophecy does not lie," she said firmly. "But understand this, it is not about perfection. It is about partnership. Together, we will face challenges neither of us could overcome alone." Before Ethan could respond, the ship shuddered slightly as it entered hyperspace. Streams of light streaked past the windows, painting the cabin in dazzling colors. Ethan stared out in awe, momentarily forgetting his doubts. For all his skepticism, he couldn't deny the beauty of what he was witnessing. Space stretched infinitely before them, filled with wonders humanity had only dreamed of. Over the next few days, Caliph took it upon herself to teach Ethan about Zorathian culture. She showed him holographic projections of her homeworld, a breathtaking realm of floating cities suspended above lush forests and crystalline oceans. She explained their warrior ethos, their reverence for honor and duty, and the sacred bonds between mates. Ethan listened intently, fascinated despite himself. Yet, when she handed him a training staff made of glowing energy, he balked. "I'm not a fighter," Ethan protested, eyeing the weapon warily. "I barely know how to throw a punch, let alone use one of those." Caliph smirked, clearly amused. "Then you shall learn. Even scholars must defend themselves." With that, she demonstrated a series of swift, fluid movements, spinning the staff effortlessly in her hands. When she motioned for Ethan to try, he fumbled awkwardly, nearly dropping the staff twice before managing to hold it steady. "Careful," Caliph called out as Ethan swung too wide and nearly hit a nearby console. Despite his clumsiness, she didn't laugh or scold him. Instead, she guided him patiently, correcting his stance and offering encouragement. Over time, Ethan began to improve, albeit slowly. Though frustration often got the better of him, there were moments, brief flashes, where he felt a spark of confidence. During one particularly grueling session, Caliph paused and looked at him thoughtfully. "You are stronger than you believe," she said quietly. "Strength is not always measured in skill or power. Sometimes it lies in perseverance." Her words struck a chord within Ethan. For the first time since stepping aboard the ship, he allowed himself to entertain the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't entirely out of his depth here. Still, questions lingered in his mind. Was this bond truly destined, or was he simply caught up in something far greater than himself? As the journey continued, Ethan noticed subtle changes in Caliph too. Beneath her stoic exterior, glimpses of vulnerability began to surface. Late at night, when she thought he wasn't looking, she would gaze out at the stars with a distant expression, as though burdened by thoughts she couldn't share. Ethan wondered what secrets lay behind those golden eyes, and whether he'd ever truly understand the weight she carried as a princess of Zorathia. Despite his lingering doubts, one truth became undeniable. Wherever this journey led, they were in it together now. When the alien ship finally emerged from hyperspace, Ethan Vale was unprepared for the sheer majesty of Zorathia. The planet loomed before them, a breathtaking tapestry of vibrant colors and shimmering light. Towering crystalline cities floated above vast forests and cascading waterfalls, their surfaces reflecting the glow of twin suns. It was a world straight out of a dream, one that felt both familiar and impossibly alien. As they descended toward the surface, Caliph turned to Ethan with an expression of quiet determination. "This will not be easy," she warned. "Many among my people doubt your worthiness, but you must prove yourself, not just for me, but for them." Ethan swallowed hard, his nerves tightening. He had spent days learning about Zorathian culture, but nothing could have prepared him for what lay ahead. The rite of bonding, as Caliph called it, was no mere ceremony. It was a series of trials designed to test strength, intelligence, and loyalty. Failure wasn't an option. not if he wanted to stand beside her as an equal. The first trial took place in an arena carved into the side of a mountain. Dozens of Zorethians gathered to watch, their golden eyes filled with skepticism. Ethan stood at the center, clad in lightweight armor that felt foreign against his skin. Across from him stood a towering warrior wielding a plasma blade, a weapon crackling with energy. Calith's voice echoed in his mind. "Trust yourself." The battle began with a flurry of motion. The warrior lunged forward, swinging the blade with precision. Ethan barely managed to dodge, stumbling backward as the heat of the weapon singed the air near his face. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but then he remembered Calith's lessons. Instead of focusing on fear, he concentrated on movement, on finding gaps in his opponent's attacks. Slowly, awkwardly, he began to adapt, using the staff she'd given him to block and counter. When the final blow landed, a clumsy yet effective strike that disarmed the warrior, the crowd erupted in murmurs of surprise. For the first time, Ethan saw flickers of respect in their eyes. The second trial tested his intellect. Locked inside a labyrinthine chamber filled with holographic puzzles, Ethan faced challenges that required quick thinking and creativity. One puzzle involved redirecting beams of light to unlock a door. Another forced him to decipher ancient symbols etched into the walls. Though frustrated at times, Ethan drew on his scientific background, solving each problem with growing confidence. By the end, even the stern judges overseeing the trial nodded approvingly. The third and final trial was the most daunting, a test of loyalty. Ethan was tasked with rescuing a group of civilians trapped inside a collapsing structure. As debris rained down around him, adrenaline surged through his veins. Ignoring the danger, he worked tirelessly to free them, using tools provided by the judges and relying on instincts honed during his training. When the last civilian was safe, Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. Throughout the trials, Calith watched from the sidelines, her emotions hidden behind a mask of composure. Yet, whenever their eyes met, Ethan saw pride shining in her gaze, a silent acknowledgement of how far he'd come. Despite his success, whispers of dissent still lingered among the nobles. Some refused to accept a human as worthy of their princess, questioning whether the prophecy itself might be flawed. These doubts weighed heavily on Calith, who struggled to balance tradition with her growing feelings for Ethan. As the sun set over Zorethia, casting the land in hues of gold and crimson, Ethan approached Calith. "I don't know if I'll ever fully understand all this," he admitted, "but I'm starting to believe we're meant to do this together." Calith placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. "Then let us face whatever comes next, as one." Unbeknownst to them, agents of the Obsidian Order plotted in the shadows, determined to exploit the cracks forming within Zorethian society. Their union was more than just a bond. It was a threat to everything the Order sought to control, and they would stop at nothing to tear it apart. As the day of the bonding ceremony approached, tension simmered beneath the surface of Zorethian society. Ethan Vale had proven himself in the right of bonding, earning the respect of many, but not everyone was convinced. Whispers of dissent spread like wildfire among the nobles, fueled by those who viewed Ethan as an outsider unworthy of their princess. Calith felt the weight of these divisions pressing down on her, straining the fragile unity she had worked so hard to maintain. Among the dissenters was Lord Veyran, one of Calith's most trusted advisors and a member of her inner council. To the public, he appeared loyal, always speaking in favor of stability and tradition. Privately, however, his allegiance lay with the Obsidian Order, a shadowy faction determined to overthrow the royal family and seize control of Zorethia. For years, Veyran had played the part of a faithful servant, biding his time until the perfect moment to strike. And now, with Calith's bond to Ethan threatening to unite the people under a new era of hope, that moment had arrived. Veyran's betrayal came to light during a private meeting between Calith and her advisors. The discussion centered around final preparations for the ceremony, but when Calith mentioned plans to incorporate human customs into the event as a gesture of goodwill, Varen's mask slipped. "You would tarnish our sacred traditions for the sake of this outsider," he snapped, his voice laced with thinly veiled contempt. Calith's eyes narrowed. "Ethan is my chosen mate, and his presence strengthens us. If you cannot accept that, then perhaps you are unfit to serve." Varen bowed low, concealing his fury behind a practiced smile. "Forgive me, Your Highness. I spoke out of turn." But as he straightened, his gaze flickered toward Ethan, who stood silently nearby. There was no mistaking the malice in his stare. Later that night, Calith confided in Ethan about her growing unease. They sat together in a secluded garden overlooking the crystalline city, its lights twinkling like stars. "I fear there are forces at work we do not yet understand," she admitted, her voice heavy with concern. "Some see our union as a threat. To them, it represents change they cannot control." Ethan reached for her hand, offering what little reassurance he could. "Change isn't always bad," he said softly. "Sometimes it's exactly what people need." Calith smiled faintly, though doubt lingered in her golden eyes. "Perhaps, but trust is fragile, and the Order will stop at nothing to exploit any weakness." Their fears were realized sooner than either expected. Days before the ceremony, a coded message intercepted by Zorathian security revealed a plot to assassinate both Calith and Ethan during the event. Worse still, evidence pointed directly to Varen as the mastermind. Confronted with the truth, Varen confessed without remorse, declaring that their union would doom Zorathia to ruin. Faced with such blatant treachery, Calith hesitated. She had always believed in justice tempered by mercy, but Varen's actions left no room for leniency. In the end, she sentenced him to exile, stripping him of his title and banishing him from Zorathian territory. Yet even as the traitor was led away, Calith couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Determined to expose the conspiracy and protect their future, Ethan proposed a bold plan. "Let's use the ceremony as bait," he suggested. "If the Order wants chaos, we'll give it to them, but on our terms." Calith regarded him thoughtfully, pride mingling with apprehension. "You continue to surprise me, Ethan Vale," she said. "Very well. We will turn their trap against them." Together, they devised a strategy to flush out the remaining conspirators. Security measures were tightened, decoys prepared, and loyal warriors stationed discreetly throughout the arena. As the twin suns rose on the morning of the ceremony, casting golden light over the gathered crowds, Ethan and Calith steeled themselves for the battle ahead. No matter what happened next, one thing was certain. Their bond had already begun to reshape Zorathia, and the fight to preserve it was far from over. The day of the bonding ceremony dawned bright and clear, with Zorathia's twin suns casting a radiant glow over the floating city. Thousands of citizens gathered in the grand arena, their golden eyes reflecting anticipation and curiosity. For many, this was more than just a royal event. It was a moment that could redefine their future. Ethan Vale stood at the center of it all, clad in ceremonial robes adorned with shimmering runes gifted by Calith herself. Despite his growing confidence, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter among such splendor. Calith entered the arena moments later, her presence commanding silence from the crowd. She wore armor etched with intricate patterns that glowed softly, symbolizing her role as both warrior and leader. Her gaze swept across the spectators before settling on Ethan, softening for just a fraction of a second. That small gesture steadied him, reminding him why they were doing this, not for tradition or prophecy, but because they believed in something greater than themselves. As the ceremony began, priests chanted ancient verses, while holographic projections depicted scenes of unity and strength. The air buzzed with energy, a mixture of hope and tension, but beneath the surface, unseen forces stirred. Hidden among the crowd were agents of the Obsidian Order, disguised as civilians, waiting for the signal to strike. When it came time for Ethan and Calith to exchange vows, the arena grew eerily quiet. Holding hands, they faced each other, their voices carrying through the space as they spoke words of commitment, not just to one another, but to the people of Zorethia. Together, Caliph declared, her voice resonating like a bell, "We will forge a new path." It was then that chaos erupted. A deafening explosion shook the arena, sending shards of crystal raining down from above. Panic rippled through the crowd as masked assassins surged forward, weapons blazing with lethal energy. Ethan instinctively pulled Caliph behind him, shielding her with his body. "Stay close," he shouted, grabbing the plasma staff she had given him during training. Caliph didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, she activated her own weapon, a gleaming blade of pure light, and stepped into battle beside him. Together, they fought back to back, moving with a synchronicity born of trust and shared purpose. Ethan's movements were far from perfect, but his determination made up for any lack of skill. He deflected bolts of energy, disarmed attackers, and even managed to knock one assailant off balance with a well-timed swing of his staff. Meanwhile, Caliph moved like a storm, her blade cutting through enemies with precision and grace. Her golden eyes burned with fury as she protected not only Ethan, but also the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Around them, loyal warriors joined the fray, turning the tide against the conspirators. Amidst the chaos, Ethan spotted Varen, or rather, someone wearing Varen's likeness. It was a holographic decoy, designed to distract them while the real threat closed in. Following Caliph's lead, Ethan pushed forward, tracking the source of the attack to a control booth high above the arena. There, they confronted the leader of the Obsidian Order, a cold-eyed figure cloaked in black armor. "You think your bond can save you?" The leader sneered, raising a weapon charged with destructive power. But before they could fire, Caliph leaped forward, knocking the weapon aside with her blade. A fierce duel ensued, ending when Caliph disarmed the assassin and pinned them to the ground. With the leader captured and the remaining conspirators subdued, the arena fell silent once more. Breathing heavily, Ethan turned to Caliph, who nodded in quiet triumph. Though battered and bruised, they stood victorious, together. As the crowd cheered, Ethan realized something profound. No matter how much doubt or danger lay ahead, their connection wasn't forged by prophecy alone. It was built on trust, courage, and an unshakable belief in the possibility of change. And that, more than anything, gave him hope for what came next. In the aftermath of the failed assassination attempt, Ethan Vale found himself at a crossroads. The bonding ceremony had been salvaged, but its true significance now extended far beyond Zorethia's borders. News of the attack, and humanity's role in thwarting it, spread across Earth like wildfire. For the first time, humanity viewed aliens not as distant curiosities or potential threats, but as beings capable of forming alliances and shared purpose. Yet, while some celebrated this newfound connection, others saw only danger. Back on Zorethia, Caliph worked tirelessly to rebuild trust among her people. The betrayal of Lord Varen and the Obsidian Order had shaken the foundation of her rule, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about power and loyalty. Despite the challenges, she remained steadfast in her vision for unity, not just within Zorethia, but between their world and Earth. Ethan became her strongest ally in this endeavor, using his unique perspective as both an outsider and a newly accepted member of Zorethian society to bridge gaps that once seemed insurmountable. One evening, as they walked through the crystalline gardens overlooking the city, Ethan voiced an idea that had been brewing in his mind. "What if we didn't stop here?" he asked, gesturing toward the stars. "Earth and Zorethia have so much to learn from each other. Imagine what could happen if we opened channels of communication, not just between governments, but between ordinary people." Caliph tilted her head thoughtfully, considering his words. "It is a bold proposal," she said after a moment, "but one I believe in. Our bond is proof that even the most unlikely connections can spark profound change." Together, they proposed the creation of the Intergalactic Accord, a groundbreaking treaty aimed at fostering cooperation between Earth and Zorethia. The agreement included provisions for cultural exchange programs, joint scientific research initiatives, and mutual defense pacts. It was ambitious, daring, and met with resistance on both sides. On Earth, factions argued that aligning too closely with an alien civilization risked losing human sovereignty. Conspiracy theories flourished online, fueled by fearmongers who claimed the accord would lead to colonization or enslavement. Meanwhile, remnants of the Obsidian Order spread propaganda among Zorathians, painting the alliance as a betrayal of their heritage. Despite these challenges, Ethan and Calith refused to back down. They traveled between worlds, addressing crowds and meeting with leaders to dispel fears and highlight the benefits of collaboration. Ethan spoke passionately about how working together could solve problems neither species could tackle alone, from climate crisis on Earth to resource shortages on Zorathia. Calith emphasized the importance of learning from humanity's resilience and adaptability, qualities she admired deeply. Their efforts paid off when the accord was officially signed aboard Calith's ship, hovering in orbit around Earth's moon. Representatives from dozens of nations joined Zorathian dignitaries in a historic ceremony marked by speeches, music, and displays of unity. As the document was sealed with glowing runes and Earth's digital signatures, cheers erupted from both sides of the divide. For Ethan, standing beside Calith during the signing felt surreal. He thought back to the lonely days in his observatory, staring at the stars and wondering if anyone was out there. Now, he stood at the forefront of a new era, one where hope outweighed fear and possibilities stretched as far as the cosmos itself. Yet, even as celebrations unfolded, Ethan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Old prejudices die hard, and there would always be those who resisted change. But with Calith by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. As fireworks lit up the sky, a blend of Earth's pyrotechnics and Zorathian light projections, Ethan leaned closer to Calith. "We did it," he whispered. "Now let's see where this takes us." She smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the brilliance above. To infinity, Ethan Vale. Together. And for the first time, Ethan truly believed it. Months had passed since the signing of the Intergalactic Accord, and the galaxy seemed to hum with newfound energy. The skies above Earth were no longer empty voids but bustling highways, filled with ships from Zorathia and other allied civilizations. Towering crystalline embassies now dotted major cities, their shimmering spires symbolizing unity and progress. Humanity's rapid adaptation to interstellar life was nothing short of miraculous, fueled by curiosity, innovation, and a shared sense of purpose. Ethan Vale stood on a balcony overlooking one such city, his mind awash with memories of how far he'd come. Just over a year ago, he'd been an isolated scientist staring at stars through a telescope. Now, he was a key figure in shaping a future where humanity and aliens worked side by side. It was surreal, and yet it felt right. Beside him, Calith Vera gazed out at the horizon, her golden eyes reflecting pride and contentment. She had changed too. Once burdened by the weight of tradition and expectation, she now carried herself with renewed confidence, inspired by the possibilities their bond had unlocked. Together, they had faced betrayal, danger, and doubt. But through it all, they had grown stronger as individuals and as partners. "You've done well," Calith said softly, breaking the silence. "Not just for me, but for both our worlds." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "I don't know about that. Most days, I still feel like I'm winging it." Calith smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And that is why you succeed. You do not let fear hold you back. You embrace uncertainty, and in doing so, you inspire others to do the same." Her words warmed him, though humility kept him grounded. He knew none of this would have been possible without her strength, or the countless people who had worked tirelessly to make the accord a reality. From scientists developing universal translators to diplomats negotiating trade agreements, every effort mattered. Below them, celebrations erupted as fireworks illuminated the night sky. It was the one-year anniversary of the accord, and people across planets were marking the occasion with festivals, speeches, and displays of cultural exchange. On Earth, musicians played alongside Zorethian performers, blending melodies into harmonies never heard before. In Zorethian cities, humans marveled at holographic art exhibits while sharing stories of their own traditions. Yet, amidst the joy, Ethan couldn't ignore the lingering challenges. Resistance movements still existed on Earth, among some who feared losing their identity. On Zorathia, among remnants of the Obsidian Order. But these voices grew quieter with each passing day, drowned out by the chorus of those eager to build something better. As the celebration reached its peak, Ethan turned to Calith. "Do you ever wonder what comes next? What happens when we've solved everything we set out to do?" Calith raised an eyebrow, amused. "Solved everything? Ethan, the universe is vast. Our work will never truly be finished, but that is the beauty of it. We get to keep exploring, learning, growing." Her answer resonated deeply within him. For so long, he'd sought answers in data and equations, believing understanding could only come from certainty. Now he realized the greatest discoveries came from embracing the unknown, the endless potential of what could be. Hand in hand, Ethan and Calith stepped back inside, joining the festivities below. As they moved through the crowd, they were greeted with smiles, cheers, and expressions of gratitude. To many, they represented hope, a living testament to the idea that even the most unlikely connections could spark profound change. Later that night, as the fireworks faded and the stars reappeared in the sky, Ethan found himself alone with Calith once more. They stood quietly together, bathed in moonlight, watching as ships streaked across the heavens. "Whatever happens next," Ethan said finally, his voice steady and sure, "we'll face it together." Calith nodded, her smile soft but unwavering. "Always." In that moment, beneath the infinite expanse of space, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace. Their journey had been anything but simple, but it had led them here, to a place where two worlds became one, and where love transcended galaxies. The stars twinkled brightly above, promising endless adventures ahead. And for Ethan and Calith, the story was just beginning.